You know, you really can't quite recreate the feeling of playing a Game Boy. I mean, sure, you can have the emulator on a laptop and move it around, but it's not quite the same. The Game Boy and other small handheld peripherals are pretty much the pinnacle of portable technology. I mean, the point of a handheld game wasn't quite to recreate it. No, it was more about being able to play your favorite games portably. Lately I've been finding myself playing Pokemon Pinball a lot. But what really changes it from the actual pinball structure? I mean, it's just pinball with Pokemon slapped on, right? Well, no. There's actually a lot to it that's different from actual pinball and changes the game up quite a bit. Now, yeah, Nintendo Fan FTW just did a video on this GB gem, and there's a link to it right in the corner so you can check it out, because it's a grade A review as usual. But I'm taking this in a different direction, because why should Pokemon Pinball be any more fun than regular pinball? A couple of good reasons actually. But first, let's take a look back at what the non-spin-off Pokemon games did for their genre, the RPG. Pokemon, the worldwide phenomenon, as you probably know, is a game developed by Game Freak, where you capture creatures called pocket monsters, or Pokemon. Once captured, your Pokemon will fight for you in a classic RPG fashion. You know, run, attack, item, that sort of deal. In fact, if you think about it, without the trainer, Pokemon would just be a typical JRPG with a party system, because that's all it really is on the surface. But due to the trainer with his goal to catch all the Pokemon in the region, the game kinda borrows from the collectathon game type, which gives an immense reason to come back and play. And this is something that Game Freak are masters of, replayability. Now you're going to hear that a lot in this upcoming review because it matters a lot to Pokemon Pinball and the Pokemon series in general. There's so many ways to play each game, without legendaries, without starters, with a certain elemental power, with one Pokemon, 6 Pokemon, only guy Pokemon, only girl Pokemon, Pokemon that are only dogs. You get the deal. The possibilities are truly endless, and that's why this game has such great replayability. Now that we know what Pokemon is, we can see how it affected the game of pinball, and how it took the same aspect and slapped it onto the classic game. Throughout Pokemon Pinball, the point is to trigger capture and evolution events on the board, which end in the capture or evolution of a Pokemon, which fills up the Pokedex, or Pokemon Encyclopedia, which houses data on each of the 151 Pokemon you've caught. This is supposed to kind of be the pinball way of catching and raising Pokemon. This event is triggered by having the ball revolve around the board 3 times. If heading right to left, this allows for a capture. Left to right will allow for an evolution. This capture or evolution also gives a whopping amount of points depending on how rare the Pokemon is. By triggering other events such as the hurry up event by hitting side targets, you can move to other locations within Kanto, since the other regions weren't out yet. On the 3rd time, you'll reach a new tier of locations, which include more rare Pokemon. On the 5th, you'll reach the Indigo Plateau, allowing for super rare encounters, including ones with Mew and my cup of tea, Mewtwo. This gives a sense of progression and gives a huge goal to the player, allowing for a really large level score or a more complete Pokedex, which brings us to the second reason Pokemon Pinball improves over the original formula. There's 2 ways to win, one of which very possible, the other being very long term, much like in the original games. Defeating the Elite Four, although difficult, is very possible, and will eventually happen through time, much like getting the high score. However, completing the Pokedex will take a good deal of time, especially for the more rare Pokemon like Mew and Mewtwo. This could take years. Of course, Pokemon Pinball shrinks that down into more of a manageable time frame. This 2 ways to win mentality is fantastic, because on the short-term victory of a high score, it keeps you fueled on your quest to catch them all. This brings back a very prominent NES thought process, in which small adept goals fuel the very difficult endgame goal, and this is seen in a lot of games today, and it's used pretty effectively. There's one thing that'll keep you coming back though. That kind of mixes with the Pokemon influence, and it comes from pinball, and I think it really works well. This game will piss you off.
Man, come on. No, why? Stop. Come on.
Sometimes you just don't flick the bumper right. Sometimes you tilt wrong. Sometimes you just didn't quite charge up the Pikachu on the side so that the ball just slips by. And sometimes you just barely miss the end save. Honestly, I think that works out really well, because the game kind of gyps you in a way. A lot of times you feel so angry that you messed up that you gotta prove yourself again. You have to play one more time and get a really good score to feel satisfied. It's kind of like an addiction, one last cigarette kind of deal. But in a way it works out and is definitely a lot healthier than some other things you could be addicted to, of course. That's one of the most important qualities to a game franchise, understanding what game you are and playing to those strengths. Pokemon Pinball does this religiously by taking the idea of catching Pokemon and utilizing short time frame goals and applying it to pinball, which is a game of frustration and constantly wanting to beat what you did before. Game Freak has also done this masterfully with Pokemon Snap, which I've already explained. This is one of my reasons that the Pokemon series has lasted as long as it has, while still seeming fresh and new. On the surface, Pokemon Pinball is just pinball, but with a little digging, the game becomes a lot more, and I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't played. This has been SuperSamicom, and until next time, may your games play like new, and your thumbs stay blistered. Hey there everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, throw in a subscribe, a like, or a comment. It really helps me out, and it's highly appreciated. If you want to see another great video like this, my friend Posse has some sweet new videos out. He's got Stay Indie, he's got Retro Nightmare, and he's got just full reviews, and they're all awesome, so I highly recommend them. You can also catch both of us on Friday nights, 10 Eastern Standard Time, for Posse and Sam's Late Night Lounge on Twitch. Hopefully we see you there. Thanks for watching.